Hi, my name is Bob Hainley,
Hi, my name is Traci Hainley,
and this is my story.
and this is my story. I was sitting on the beach and I heard my husband yell, "Help!" Just heard help crystal clear. I got up, I ran to the shoreline, and I could see that he was in trouble. And I began yelling and screaming for somebody to please help him.
We were vacationing at Duck, North Carolina, the last week of August of this year. And on Wednesday, August 26th, around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we were at the beach, and I went into the water, and the tide was coming in, it was high tide, and I wasn't very far out into the water when waves began pounding me, and I started swallowing water. So I began swimming, and I kept getting hit by waves and taking on water. So at some point I yelled for my son Devin, and then I continued to swim and was continuing to be hit by waves and swallowing water. And then at some point I yelled help because I knew I was in trouble. I couldn't believe that this was happening. I couldn't believe that I was drowning. And I remember looking up at the surface of the water. I could see the sunlight, and but I wasn't afraid. I wasn't scared. I just was in disbelief that I couldn't believe that this was happening. And that's the last thing I remember until I came to in the hospital.
Different people just started to run towards the water line, and there was chaos. People were running out of the water, yelling, screaming, and my daughter was coming down the beach, and she saw what was happening. And as they were bringing him in, she kept screaming that her dad was dead, and I said, "He is not. He's fine." She could see them as at that point, because till she had come up onto the beach, they were bringing him in, and he wasn't breathing. He was purple, and the ER doctor, they started CPR. They started to resuscitate him. I remember them saying that his pulse was weak. First there was no pulse, and then they started working on him, and they were saying that his pulse was weak. And I remember just praying so hard, just, bring my husband and my kid's father back to them. And as Bob was in the water, every time a wave would come up, I just prayed that we would still see his head above the water. After they worked on Bob there on the beach, they got him right into the ambulance. And as soon as we got into the ambulance, the first call I made was to my mother. And I told her Bob was in trouble, that it didn't look good, to please give Grace Bible a call and get him on prayer chains. And then, I know it seemed like forever, but then the helicopter had arrived to airlift Bob to the hospital. And I remember the paramedic, I kept asking him, "Is he okay? Is he okay?" And the paramedic, all he could tell me was that he was the best drowning victim that he had seen in a long time. So that gave me, that gave us some hope. Plus, I never wanted to think that anything was wrong. I got to the hospital, and a chaplain met me, which I was concerned that might not be such a good sign, a chaplain meeting you. But the chaplain met me, and he was able to get us to where Bob was. we had to wait in a room till the doctor came out and spoke to me. And whenever he spoke to me, he didn't pull any punches. He wanted to let me know that when Bob arrived, by ambulance, that there was no brain activity. And he was explaining to me about how when the brain doesn't have oxygen for 3 to 5, 6 minutes, that it starts, there's brain damage that starts to occur. And he said that it's too early. We won't be able to tell anything like that. But he wanted me to know that that all his labs, they weren't even compatible with a person that would be alive. So he was letting me know how critical this was, but they were giving him medications to help with this. He also told me that there is only 1% of drowning victims that survive, and he said that my husband was that 1% that survived.
That day, God had everything in place, from an ER doctor, 2 paramedics, and a nurse who we later found out were staying in houses across the street from where we were staying. We're on the beach at that time. The ambulance being able to get there in a timely manner, the police officer who normally would have been home, but because he answered a late call that day, was in position to stop traffic, to let the ambulance have a straight shot, a clear path to the rescue center, the helicopter being available to take me to Norfolk, the trauma doctor and his team being on station at the hospital at that time, the respiratory therapist that treated me, God had her there, just everything he had from the time I went underwater and lost consciousness, he took over. And by his grace is the only reason that I'm here today. I want to thank everyone for their prayers, and my family, my wife, my son and daughter, and everyone for all their prayers and support. My daughter sent this verse to my wife while I was in the ambulance. It's Isaiah 41, verses 10 and 13. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. Yes, I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. For I, the Lord your God, will hold your right hand, saying to you, fear not, I will help you.